Hey everybody, it's Ola aka Chalk1 from Battlefield Podcast, and you're about to watch a discussion about Battlefield 3, Endgame, and the future in Battlefield 4 between myself, Scannerbarkly, Billythekid, PTFODylan, and YNOTtheTiger, as we talk about those things, what we'd like to see changed. This was Scanner's idea, and I want to credit him for this idea, and I'm glad that he's letting us post this on our channel. The gameplay footage in the background is just a round of Aftermath on the Xbox 360 that I recorded with Glittery Mocha, Addison 396, and a few of the other guys we play with. So please enjoy.
All right then, let's just start the discussion. We'll open with a curse word. Shit. So
should we all open with our favorite curse word?
No, because then we'll get an explicit warning on YouTube.
Okay.
That would be suitably rude. Right.
One's the limit.
Joined by Billythekid, YNOTtheTiger, BF4 who still has one of the best names I've run into on fucking YouTube, and Ole, aka Chalk1, and we're going to talk shit about Battlefield. So,
All right.
open to the floor. Who's got, what are your biggest issues right now with Battlefield 3 that you're really hoping gets solved with the end patch?
Countermeasures.
Yes.
Countermeasures
yes.
all fucking day.
They are all hell.
What needs to happen, I think, is I was playing a Conquest on Cog Island the other day, and you have an Igla or whatever, you lock onto a chopper, you fire at it, deploys its flares. It goes down the mountain for about 5 seconds, comes back, you lock on, deploys flares again. It's that kind of thing. Difficult to take choppers down.
Not only that, for jets, ECM just does not work.
Does not work, yeah. And below radar doesn't work either.
No.
Yeah. I love seeing that though in Battlefield when you lock onto a jet and you fire and it ECMs and your Stigla just swings around it in a circle until the ECM.
Yes, orbits the damn jet. Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, there's a lot of the aerial stuff is largely unbalanced now. I'm unsure as to if it really had a valid place.
It did. I don't think that aircraft were so overpowered that the ground forces need to have faster lock-on and higher ceilings for their lock-ons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, to be honest, the last time that I went to go shoot down a jet with an Igla or a Stinger, I locked on into it for like a second. I didn't even have enough time to lock on, and it would fly out of range. So I don't know if they actually had changed that since Armored Kill. They might have, but I just didn't know.
Yeah, one of my clanmates, Ralph, actually pointed out that he reckons the only reason jets were even in Battlefield 3 because they're obviously making big moves to sell the Frostbite 2 engine to other developers, looking at the amount of games that are suddenly going to use Frostbite 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he reckons the only reason they put jets in it in the first place was to try and sell it to flight simulators.
Perhaps, yeah.
You would have had a bunch of really upset people if there wasn't going to be any jets in BF3.
Well, true, yes, it is Battlefield 3.
Yeah,
so.
they would be pissed, but you got to change.
There are better engines out there for flight sims.
There are.
Yeah, like Armed Assault, maybe.
Yeah.
There's better engines out there to build goddamn BioWare games in, and they're going to be using Frostbite.
I've heard about that, yeah.
So, right, that's jets, aerial stuff in general. Making helicopters, I'd like to see helicopters become something to be properly feared again.
Yeah.
Like it's when you're on the ground and you're getting mashed up by them, but it's a freaking $25 million piece of ordnance. It's supposed to mess you up.
Exactly. I mean, they removed the gunner flares.
That was a good move.
That was a good move, yeah. Because beforehand, if you had a really good chopper crew, they were invincible.
Yep. You could.
Gunner
It's
flare.
funny you should say that because DICE argued that they're still just as invincible because of below radar. I'm like, bullshit, they are.
Yeah,
Well, none of that stuff's working. I mean, if that stuff was working, I'd say, yeah, you know what, you got rid of the gunner flares, that balanced it out. But they always talk about these knock-on effects where they make all these changes and they didn't think that they would somehow relate. And all of a sudden they do because they've, below the radar is broken. They buffed all the stingers and stuff, and now helicopters are almost useless, especially if people get together and actually equip some stingers.
Yeah,
or javelins.
Even having what we do religiously is one guy will have an RPG and one guy will have a stinger, and you lock on with the stinger and the heli goes real low to break the lock, and you use RPG the crap out of it. Yeah, it's still easy enough to sucker a helicopter into a cheap debt. And they really do have to fix the aerial nature of it, because jets, helis, all that stuff, they are important tactically especially for me, Conquest.
Yep.
They can really
Rush too. Rush, even a jet Rush can do some serious work.
Yeah, I think one critical thing which would really improve the kind of sense of combat and balance and everything you get between infantry and air vehicles in terms of firing rockets at them and trying to take out air vehicles like jets or choppers. You would need to have a AT4 style thing from Bad Company 2, because at the moment it's either fire a static rocket or fire a rocket that can only fire when it's locked on, and even then the range is kind of limited. So if you kind of fill the gap between those and give a player a skill-based option where you fire an AT4 and you get it yourself, I think that would be a good addition to Battlefield 4 possibly.
That would be good.
Even a weapon in endgame even.
Something wire guided.
Yeah, it would have to have a limited range. I mean, you couldn't fire this thing into the deployment of the enemy.
Yeah,
that would the rage would build really fast.
Yeah.
Although the thing about the AT4 is once it gets out of your visual range, it's really hard to guide it. So you've kind of got that.
Yeah, it is
true.
In terms of visual.
that's the one thing DICE really need to step up for Battlefield 4 testing.
Yeah.
And really, just enough of this nice stuff. Get the trolls, get the arsehole hackers, get them in to test it.
Yep.
And to test it to the limit before you bring it out. Nobody's around playing nice, yeah.
I tweeted at, I think it was Demise99. He said they were in the testing phase for the endgame maps, and I tweeted at him saying, be sure you test that thing extensively, because especially the addition of the dropship and everything, you want to ensure that things are balanced day one instead of the armored kill scenario we had where Rush was just completely broken.
Yeah, because of the AC-130.
Yeah, and then they removed the thermal sights from the AC-130, so all those trailers you see don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Wait, they don't have thermal sights anymore?
No, not on the AC-130. No.
After we all kind of hoped that Armor and Kill was gonna be kind of cool and maybe proportionate for the consoles, but after it was so disproportionate and it's too big, I stopped playing it. I really only got on there to fight jets and shoot down shit and get my Maverick dog tags really easily.
Yeah, that's true. I'll play tank superiority all day.
Oh, I like tank superiority.
I used to hate it, but then I had a kind of a week where I just forced myself to play it a lot, and I started to appreciate the vibe of that particular mode.
Yeah. I think one issue they may have with Battlefield 4, if you're talking, if they want to make a marketing campaign where the kind of leading off Battlefield 2 or Battlefield 3, where they're saying, we have huge maps, and if they want to try and advertise that they have bigger maps than before, they're going to have that issue where, Battlefield 4 is obviously going to release for next-gen consoles. It might be a light version or something, but it's still going to be there. And there's going to be perhaps an issue where if they want to make bigger maps, they're going to have to structure them a lot better than they did Armored Kill, because there was no real definitive structure to the Armored Kill maps I felt on console. You really only had the visual identity of them, no real map structure to them that was recognizable.
Well, the mistake that they made with Armored Kill is they should have made it 3 objectives instead of 5. 5 was just too much, you know. And it's the same way with Wake Island. 5 objectives is way too much for 24 players.
Yeah. That's, I think, the biggest thing when I started playing on consoles, being used to PC. I think the 5 flags on PC are fine when you get 64 players, but I was surprised that the maps were the same size and you're just knocked down to 24 players. I mean, it's less than half on the same size map.
Yeah.
Well, here's
ridiculous.
The thing about Wake Island was they initially had 3 flags on Conquest for consoles, did they not? They didn't have the 5 flags.
There's day 1 and day 2 on some modes.
Yeah.
for Wake Island, and they've got like the day 2, I think, is a very reduced operating area. Like it's the same on Karkand, Strike at Karkand. The day 2 Conquest Assault can be a vicious action-packed game because it's 3 flags just lumped quite close together.
Yeah.
And then you go and you play day 1 and you're kind of running around a lot. And I understand them wanting parity of experience for players, but players don't want that.
Yeah.
You know, no console player is sitting there going, I demand exactly the same experience. Well, you have a few because they're dumb, but like I demand exactly the same experiences on PC because we're understanding of hardware limitations. So what we want is something that works with our hardware limitations.
Yeah, see,
Exactly. Yeah.
the problem is you've got, you know, you had Wake Island, 3 flags, whatever. A lot of people on Conquest complained that there was too much room between each flag, too much running about, not enough action or whatever. And then you've got the 5 flag version, which people complain about. You know, it's kind of difficult to manage the whole game with those 5 flags in there because you only have 24 players between those 5 flags, and it doesn't necessarily work too well for, you know, map control across the whole game. It's kind of a awkward balance there. But you've got, I think for Battlefield 4, one thing which they need to do is recognize that you can't really make perfect, or you will make mistakes inevitably if you try and create a kind of balance between console and PC map design, you know, to make it fit for both player counts and everything. So that's going to be interesting to see how will they have a team dedicated to making console maps and a team dedicated to making PC maps is something which is going to be interesting to see.
All of a sudden, EA and DICE are sitting on a much bigger cash cow than I think they imagined.
Yep.
At first, it's so well.
I actually think I kind of hope they anticipated this, especially with the way that Modern Warfare 3 flopped. Now Black Ops 2 is flopped. I kind of hope they're anticipating being the biggest FPS game out there for Battlefield 4.
Yeah, I think they're gunning for that now. I think they're aware of what they can actually do. And I think I've heard a lot of people complain about the DLCs and the way they were rolled out, and they were too themed and stuff like that. But to me, that's a genius move. And as a player, I really appreciate that, because if there was something that just didn't appeal to me, I could just not buy it. And I wasn't buying something because of, you know, 20% of the DLC didn't appeal to me. I was making decisions to buy it based on 100% appeal or 0%.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. And I think it was the Schustiban guys talking about how they'll probably use the information based on sales to dictate a lot of the maps and modes and design work of Battlefield 4.
Yeah.
I kind of doubt that, because Battlefield 4 has got to be at least been under production for the last 2 years. So I doubt that they've actually been able to, unless they're doing it retroactively, go back and look at sales figures and be like, oh, okay, this sold really well, and this didn't sell really well. But I mean, what if they've already made an Armored Killed map pack for Battlefield 4?
Yeah, but they'll probably have made a lot of possible content. The same way as there's probably dozens of maps sitting there for Battlefield 3 that we'll never see.
Yeah. I think one thing which you might have to... I mean, you're looking at the fact that Battlefield 3, in a lot of ways, went for the casual crowd. Like, you've got close quarters, some smaller maps like Gramsar or whatever. And then if EA sees that sold well, you know, compared to Bad Company 2 or past Battlefields, Battlefield 4 will likely have a lot. It's definitely going to have a close quarter theme to it, at least in one area or two, just to gun for that casual crowd.
Well, especially if you want to try to capture some of those folks who weren't happy with Black Ops 2.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And even to work on take advantage of the shining light of Battlefield 3, which is the gunplay.
And honestly, Close Quarters probably is one of the DLCs that plays best amongst all the platforms. Like, I find it's fun on consoles and on PC the same. You know, because the maps are the same, and I think they're good sizes for consoles. They play really well with 24 players. They're still fun with 48. So you kind of have that best of both worlds.
So you can't play a 60-man close quarters server?
No, you can, but you don't want to. Trust me, it's just.
Yeah, I was gonna say that would be a
yeah.
clusterfuck.
Yeah, I've seen some videos on YouTube, and it just looks like a freaking nightmare. Revive and die,
C4
spawn
everywhere.
And die, kill.
Well, here's
revive and
to
die.
kind of change gears a little bit because we're kind of hitting on Battlefield 4. What do you guys think? And I've heard people wish that Battlefield 4 will be Bad Company 3.
Yeah, I keep wishing for that, but I'm wishing for that because I expect the multiplayer section to be what it is, regardless. It's the story of Battlefield, like Bad Company, that I want more of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want the story.
Yeah.
I don't really care about the multiplayer is essentially the same thing for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is,
It's those characters I want to revisit and play again.
Well, because they left you up on that cliffhanger where the Russians are invading Alaska. You're like, okay.
Damn.
Yeah.
Are we going to Alaska now?
Snow maps. Hey.
Yeah.
The problem was, the Battlefield 3 single player, it's too serious. Just like
It
with
is.
Medal of Honor, it's just too serious. And the one thing I loved about the Bad Company, campaigns, especially the first one where they're going after the gold.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, there was this movie with Clint Eastwood called Kelly's Heroes. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yeah.
But it's basically it's like a World War II movie where they find out there's Nazi gold in the bank and they go behind enemy lines to steal it.
Well,
It's more or less like
but he also did a movie from Desert Storm. Same concept. There was
Same
this
concept,
Iraqi
yeah.
gold.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
George
and
Clooney.
that-
so.
the Three Kings.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, sorry, yeah.
And
Wrong
that
guy.
was one of the best things about the Bad Company series. It was funny. It was like
Yeah.
these three lads go on a massive golf course in a buggy, blowing the shit out of Russians to steal some gold.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see everybody's tired of Iran, this Afghanistan, that. Nobody wants that anymore.
No one wants another worldwide threat.
Nope.
anymore.
Yeah,
Oh,
nobody wants.
You think it's because we see that in the news every fucking day?
Yeah.
Exactly. Everybody's tired of it, and nobody wants to be. Nobody cares about these characters. Oh, it's a guy who's a special forces. Don't care about him.
Yeah.
Another cookie cutter, slightly scarred special forces guy who's nervous to get back into action. Shut up.
I guess you're right, because the Bad Company 2 had elements of like the A-Team. These four guys, they're actually not well liked by anybody, expendable.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I
fits
see
the
that.
humor.
There's appeal to play with as I don't know, dark or gray heroes.
Yeah, exactly.
But see, the thing about Bad Company, which, I personally found it difficult to complete BF3's campaign because it was so closed and linear and as well as the generic story. But the thing about Bad Company 2, it was interesting to play, and Bad Company 1 as well, it was interesting to play as those characters. Like, you enjoyed the story, you enjoyed the character profiles. And the thing that really, spells the difference between that campaign and the likes of BF3 or Black Ops, Modern Warfare campaigns is the way there was a moment in Bad Company 2 where one of the Bad Company squad, he was making fun of that kind of serious tone that some soldiers have, like Spec Ops soldiers or Elite soldiers or whatever. They kind of took a knock at that, which says something about, what direction they should head in.
Because do you think they're still employed with DICE and EA?
I hope so.
I hope so. Yeah.
Because what if they're not anymore? Maybe that's why the Bad Company series died.
If they're not, they should employ us to do it. we could all do it a job, a fresh job, working for DICE. That'd be good. Ole, you've been quiet, so I'm going to chuck a question at you and get your suppression is a big issue for most players. So I'm wondering, what do you want to see happen with the current suppression system with regards to Battlefield 4? Do you want it replicated or changed?
I don't hate it as much as some people do. I really don't. I don't know. There's moments where you get suppressed way after the actual act of suppression, where it's kind of like, okay, wear off already. What the hell? I don't mind getting points for missing. I really don't have a problem with that. Maybe that says more about my accuracy than anything else. But that's sort of a hot topic with some people, that you you can get a lot of points for not actually hitting anything. But points aside, it's really annoying when you're suppressed, and you obviously shouldn't be. You shouldn't be suppressed by a single action sniper or an expo for them.
Yeah.
And that happens. So I think it needs some tweaking. I don't think that they should just get rid of it altogether. And I know they won't. It's just, I don't think they could. I don't think they could ever admit that they made mistake of that magnitude.
Well,
I don't think the suppression though is a mistake. To be honest, it could use tweaking.
Suppression can be employed correctly, but I mean, there's a lot of things they could change to make it more tactical. Because the fact that snipers can suppress bolt action ones, especially, that says something about if you're using a bolt action, right? You're going for one shot at a time. You're hardly going to miss someone intentionally, so your teammates can,
Like you want people to be able to set up LMGs and suppress people. I don't think I should get suppression points when I'm pulling out the Magnum and I'm sort of wildly shooting at somebody because I'm about to die, and then I die, and then I get 50 suppression assist points, and like sweet.
Yeah.
So
suppression
there's
medal.
some of those. Yeah.
So do you think that suppression should be points only given to the support class using LMGs?
I think it should almost be linked to the type of weapon it is. And I'm sure that there's probably somebody who knows about guns and could actually tell you that, anything with a fire rate of less than whatever probably wouldn't suppress somebody effectively. Certainly handguns, I don't think pistols shouldn't. Single bolt-action sniper rifles shouldn't.
Somebody tweet Dascro real quick.
I think their goal with the suppression is anything to keep your enemies' heads down. So I know if I'm being shot at and I'm not in a position to shoot back, I'll be suppressed.
Yeah, I don't mind the blurring of the screen.
Yeah.
And I almost don't mind even a little hit to my accuracy. But I find it hilarious that I can stroll along with an M60 full auto and 200, rounds out of the clip.
Yeah.
And I might as well be Neo standing there with my hand out because no one can touch me.
I'm sure you've seen that video. It was released quite early into BF3's release. But this guy had, I think it was a PKP, and it was in Operation Metro. And he was coming out of the locker area, and he was just spamming that thing, from, if you're coming from C flag up to B flag in Operation Metro, it was kind of behind that wall when you come up the stairs. He was just firing at these enemies' feet, and they couldn't fire back at him. Like, they were aiming for him, but they couldn't shoot at him because they were so ridiculously suppressed, and he wasn't even, it was a joke how much suppression there was in place there. So,
with all the attachments and stuff, they being DICE should be able to somehow adjust it as well, so that if you have an LMG with a bipod deployed, you should probably get more suppression effect than if you're just, like you said, walking around hip firing the thing. You know what I mean? Like, just people always say, "Oh, it's not realistic enough," but some realism's good, especially when it comes to things like that. I mean, suppression is a valid tactic that's used, but it's not done by people just walking around. It's by people who are set up in position somewhere with a bipod and doing that, suppressing an enemy so that someone else can flank or something.
Yeah, or even just like forcing them to move because where they've set up and are currently strongholding is now useless because they just can't take the risk of sticking their head out a window or they'll get caught with a Bravo round or something like that.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That would all add so much to, but that would require a kind of a new look at their map design as well.
Yeah,
it would.
I mean, there's some realism that just doesn't belong. If you want realism, get Arma 2.
Yeah. Realism does not equal fun, and I think that's what a lot of people need to realize when they're defending some of the mechanics of BF3.
Yeah, I do find it funny when people say they want games to become more and more realistic. So I always just throw the concept at them of you walk into the shop, you spend your 50 quid on the game, go home, you install it, you load in, you hit the battlefield, you die, and you're never allowed to play it again. That's some realistic shit. It's just like, why? There was somewhere else I wanted to lead off with suppression, and I cannot remember. Oh, here's one for you. The customization options in Battlefield 3, they're reasonably limited. You've got your class skin, and that's it. All NGs look the same, all medics look the same. Would you like to see different heads, different bodies?
Yes,
definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely, yeah. Much more like the visualization of the renders of the models. I think that would be a good thing. I mean, one of the best things about Aftermath was the models. They're new models.
Yeah.
I'd love to see more of that.
And I found it confusing when I started playing Aftermath, and I was like, is this guy a medic? Is he a support? I found myself really focusing on the actual kits that people were carrying for those first couple of games.
Yeah.
And it changed things because I wasn't instantly recognizing, a guy as being a support guy.
And perhaps that's
whatever decision I'd make, I was making a couple of seconds later when I figured out what he was.
Yeah. Perhaps that's one thing, if they're allowing you to change your class skin, or what you're wearing as a class in Battlefield 4, that would be something they would need to consider. Keep the class identifiable instantly as a assault or an engineer, regardless of what you're wearing. Whether it be, I don't know, whether you can equip sunglasses or not, or something like that.
Yeah. Do you guys maybe use the weapon? The soldier camos. Like, does anyone? Because I never do, because they always reset. So, I think even if it just remembered, you'd probably have more variety. Because I see people just not using them because why bother?
Yeah.
I change them. I change it depending on the map sometimes.
That's all. If you change it in game as you're playing.
Yeah.
Maybe the next time you die, you get a choice.
I think that was perhaps one thing they did for BF3 with the soldier camos. They kind of took into consideration. I mean, you've got a woodland camo and a black camo, whatever. They can be used as camos, like actual camouflage to blend yourself in with the environment.
I try to change my camo to match the other team. That's what I try to do.
That would work so well on PC, on that mode where there's no HUD or anything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That would be cool, actually.
Going based on what you guys are saying about like player look and camos, something that I thought about a long time ago is that Medal of Honor Tier 1 was a test bed for a lot of things they put into Battlefield 3. So like the weapons, the movements. So here we have Medal of Honor Warfighter, and we've got the different looks, the different camos, the different countries and such. Yep. Do you guys think that's going to find a way into Battlefield 4 if they sort of hold up to the same sort of let's test in Medal of Honor and execute in Battlefield? Because then you've got different actual countries' soldiers that you can pick from that look different.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool to have the different country soldiers. I think the weapon customization was way over the top.
That was way over the top.
Yeah.
Tactical pink guns.
Yeah, just different colored stocks and exchanging them. Like, I remember looking through them and literally being like, what the hell's the difference? Yeah. And you're trying to do this in a game that's pretty fast paced, so you're not going to sit there and spend 30 seconds trying to customize your gun. At least I don't. Yeah. So that it was too much. You did, Tony.
I didn't.
No, it's just it's just too much. I think the soldier thing though was kind of neat because you can kind of identify yourself with, like at least if you're in one of the countries that was represented. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, this soldier system, a lot of people would say would not work in Battlefield 3 because usually you've got US v Russia, whatever. Like there's set teams each match of countries. But one thing that just crossed my mind there, which would be cool to see in Battlefield 4, is in Battlefield 2 you had kind of alliance teams. So you had like, I forget the name, it's like some Middle Eastern alliance. So it was like
the mech.
Yeah, the mech. Yeah. So if you have teams like, if you're playing a Rush game and one team say NATO and then the other team is some Middle Eastern alliance of coalition of countries, you can choose a country within that alliance that you want to play as within that team. So you'd still get that kind of choice there, depending on what team you're playing on, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, a lot of that could be played out with a story, depending on what kind of overlying storyline they have that could explain these factions or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. And that actually goes into an interesting point. Do you think that they should make up like fictitious factions now instead of using real countries? And
yes,
sure. They did it in Battlefield 2, and 2142 obviously did it, and it's worked very well in those games. So
I'm sick to my ass of
fighting Russians or either Russians or
being American.
Chinese or
It's just it's in all games, and especially then the amount of games that are kind of based in like World War I, World War II.
Reality.
It's all there, and it's always like the same versus the same, and they couldn't possibly like mix stuff up too much by all of a sudden you're playing the Russians, because then a load of people would like complain about the game because no one wants to be the Russians and all that kind of stuff. If they had like the potential for the single player, if they just make up factions that have nothing got to do with reality whatsoever, is huge, because you could have a split single player campaign where you play so many missions as a guy on one side and you learn all about his story, and then you learn so many missions as a guy on the other side and you learn all about his story, and you learn about the ideologies of both parties, the drives of each individual person, and then the climax of the game is you actually deciding which character, both of which you've played, effectively wins.
That's a brilliant mechanic.
Now you're getting in like Call of Duty area when you start playing with different sides.
Well,
although they are always playing on the same side against Nazis or against the bad guys, but the same sort of idea that you're going to play as two or three different people within the campaign.
Exactly.
The thing about campaign in Battlefield 4, what would be great to see them do is take a step back. I think they looked at the Modern Warfare campaigns or COD campaigns or whatever, that kind of linear approach, and they thought that was the only way to go. But there was a game on the PlayStation 2, it was Battlefield 2 on the PlayStation 2, and essentially the single player was open battlefields where you had two factions fighting against each other, but it was kind of story driven. And so one mission you would play as the Europeans, the next mission you would play as the opposite faction, which would be the Chinese or whatever. But the cool thing about it was that in the cutscenes before each mission, you got, it's kind of like a propaganda style cutscene of why you should fight as the Europeans or why you should fight as the Chinese. And then if you get that kind of story in there, as well as open battlefields in the campaign, kind of make you think of why you're fighting for each side, give you a purpose, that would be nice to see.
Yeah.
And I think if you have fictional story, that gets a lot easier, because it's hard to convince people that you should play as, some kind of country that there's real life conflicts with, and nobody wants to play the terrorists kind of thing. But if it's all fictional, you can do those propaganda things, and RTS games do that all the time. It's all made up, and you play as one of three different factions, and like you said, you learn about their specific benefits versus the other team's specific benefits. So,
yeah, it's just a step away from the real world. Would revitalize things. Like, granted, it doesn't really affect the multiplayer so much, because it doesn't matter what side that I load into a game, whether I'm Russians or American in Battlefield 3. I'm not fighting Russians. I'm fighting some gimp on the other end of the internet who's lagging or camping or just better than me, and it becomes personal.
You just want to be on the side where your friends are, really, when you're playing multiplayer.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what side it is.
And occasionally on the other side, so you can get a few tags.
Yeah, well, there's that.
Just a comment before we leave the subject, maybe on the single player of Battlefield 4. What I'd love to see is, first of all, multiple ways to tackle an objective in an open battlefield. So you can move from cover to cover with your squad up to an objective, or you can go up to a building and snipe and help cover your squad up to the objective, or those kind of multiple ways to tackle a mission. And then one big thing which I'd love to see is, along with more open missions, do allow people to play in 4-player co-op in the campaign when you have those bigger missions.
Yes.
Kind of give it that replayability.
Well, that'd be cool, yeah.
That was one thing that really did fail for the co-op on BF3. It was only 2 people. If they met at 4, it would have been much more enjoyable. And if they did more co-op missions, people would actually play them.
And also
even if you didn't unlock any new weapons, they'd still play them.
And like I said, give the player multiple ways to tackle the missions. Don't just tell them, run up this straight alleyway and arm the bomb or whatever. Give them multiple incentives.
And it would prepare people better for the multiplayer concept.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's what Battlefield 2 did on the PlayStation 2. The single player was very much like the multiplayers, and you had big open battlefields to tackle objectives and stuff. So that prepared players very well.
Now, they've done a lot right, obviously, with Battlefield, selling probably by now touching off 18 million copies.
Yep.
And like for Battlefield 4, what do you think they should just hold on to completely from Battlefield 3? What shouldn't change?
I think there might be. I mean, as someone who, when Battlefield 3 came out, I was a bit disappointed in some of the, the small maps or whatever. I wanted this was Battlefield 3, the sequel to Battlefield 2, and yet they didn't have Titan mode from Battlefield 2142, which was awesome. And a lot of the maps were smaller, and this was appeal to the casual crowd. So I think there's going to be a difference between what a Battlefielder would like to see them hold on to from Battlefield 3 and what the casual crowd would like to see from Battlefield 4.
Yeah.
So that'll be something to keep in mind.
I think the vehicle gameplay, depending on if it's next gen console, which is more than likely is what's going to happen, I think the vehicle gameplay is all right. It's great. I don't think it needs to be upped or downed. I think right now it's fine. There's a nice even balance between gunplay and vehicle gameplay, say on Carg Island.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but Battlefield 4 is coming out on PS3.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Although they're talking about, there's been rumors of it being a light version, if you get what I mean, on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox. So maybe you'll just have 24 players on them, and then on the next gen consoles you'll have 64 player games.
I don't know if I buy that. I think that's kind of pipe dreams, simply because dev kits, as far as I'm aware from what I've read on the internet, dev kits for PS4 and Xbox 720 only shipped within the last couple of months.
Oh, did they? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So it's only given maybe an 8-month time frame.
Yeah, that's not.
But I mean, going
develop.
beyond that though, you got to look at the consumer. As a consumer, I don't want to buy the game twice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Two, yeah.
No,
And
but they may do something. They may do something like
Extra
like they do with high-res texture packs or something like that. Some kind of add-on that you can get on the next-gen consoles.
Yeah, some incentive.
But the base game would have to. I think you're right. There's just not enough time to develop for a whole new system. Not for whenever the Battlefield 4 is supposed to launch, anyway.
There was that.
I don't know if EA are going to drop the cash to develop for a very small, what is going to be a very small user base of year one PS4 buyers.
Yeah, exactly.
God knows how many problems PS4 is going to have.
I don't even know if I'm buying a PS4 year one. I might wait till all the bugs are fixed.
I'm buying that shit day one, and then I'm going to regret it on day 10.
I'm going to regret it, yeah. Because all I hear about is all those people with those big fat PS3s from the initial drops all burning out, Blu-ray discs or Blu-ray lasers going out, stuff like that.
Sure, it's the same on the Xbox side. I mean, the first 360s were garbage hardware-wise. They'd all die within a year, and they made a hell of a lot of noise and stuff, so... You don't usually, a lot of people will go and buy the stuff day one, but I think a lot of people won't, especially, depending on the price point, I guess, but...
I definitely will, just because I'm really looking forward to seeing what's, this will really be... I didn't get the PS3 day one, and I want to get the PS4 day one and see what it has to offer, but one problem definitely will be, as we saw from the PS3, I'm not sure about Xbox, but you had only 12 gigabyte hard drives with the initial PS3, and then that very quickly became a problem for a lot of people because the hard drive filled up in no time at all in terms of content. But
that's actually a conversation for another day, but I was going to say I can't help but imagine that next gen consoles, if I was in any way in charge, I'd at least be looking into the concept of upgradability.
Yeah.
So that you can go out, you can buy a PS4, and then further down the line, you can upgrade to a PS4.5.
If they made a modular setup, that would be the best idea for any next-gen consoles.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good idea. But
toward the end of this,
it's I can't.
Then Sony could sell upgraded parts. Oh, you want to buy performance parts for your PS4? Boom, here you go.
Here you go, and your graphics look better.
You have to remember though that when you're talking consoles, one of the big appeals to developers is that every PS3 is the same, more or less. Yeah. Right. And once you get into modular anything, you run into the same issue that people have with PCs, where somebody plays on a $500 PC and someone else on a $2,500, and they both want the best value out of it.
That's true.
Yeah, and then you've got a certain graphics card that is, problematic with certain game engines and blah blah blah. It's just it's going to be a non-stop nightmare when I get back into PC gaming. I know it is.
Yeah.
In terms of speaking of performance and everything, in terms of optimization for Battlefield 3 on the consoles, what do you think about? Will Battlefield 4 run any better? Do you think? Will Frostbite be optimized for Battlefield 4 for current gen consoles?
I think it'll run better simply because they'll have 17 million people beta testing Frostbite 2 engine for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they keep saying that Medal of Honor Warfighter was using a lot more of the Frostbite 2 engine capabilities, even though you didn't see a lot of it in game. But just speaking purely from a PC perspective, Warfighter ran a lot better on my PC than BF3 does at higher settings. So, and it didn't necessarily look any better. It certainly didn't look any worse. But so they've definitely done something to squeeze more power out of the same system.
I thought that Warfighter didn't look. I thought Warfighter was like taking a step back graphics wise.
I don't know if graphics wise there were features that was missing. Like you couldn't destroy wooden stairs and things. Minor things like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I guess it's a case of kind of developer experience. Like if you go back to the very first games that were released on PS3 or Xbox 360, they look like shit compared to what people are able to do now.
True.
Because you'd have to think that it would
they know and the knowledge base they've built up and all their skill and experience of developing.
And Frostbite is a new engine, so they'd hopefully optimize it for Battlefield 4. But one problem I did have with BF3 on the PlayStation was especially on maps like, back to Carcand or whatever, the frame rate would just chug at like points where there was a lot of, fighting going on at a flag and stuff. So I'm hoping that they can, first of all incorporate more destruction, because I feel like that was a step. Destruction from BC2 to BF3 was a step backwards. I'm not sure if that was a decision based on game design and map balance, or if they just didn't have that worked out for Frostbite 2 yet. But I would like to see slightly. I think they can pull off some sharper textures on consoles, because certainly there's a lot of areas in which Bad Company 2 looked a lot sharper than BF3 in terms of textures, in my opinion, anyway.
Do you not think that they really improved that? The destruction's gotten better in Aftermath?
I think in terms of micro destruction, yeah. Like if you're chipping stuff off walls, it's certainly a lot more detailed. But in terms of blowing up houses and being able to destroy certain walls completely, it's certainly taken. It's still not there on Bad Company 2's level yet. I guess it's a
basic difference there, though, I think, is if you consider the Bad Company 2 maps, which I've played. I don't have huge experience with Bad Company 2, but I've played the multiplayer. And you consider the amount of structures and the density of structures and even the build. Like, can you imagine trying to map and model the 100 million different ways that oil refinery on Firestorm could fall over?
Well, that's one that I actually should have taken that into account. I remember playing BF3 on day one, I immediately noticed compared to BC2, even though there was less destruction, there was far more variety in structures. So right there.
So hopefully all that kind of stuff, though, the next gen will have the power to do it, because once again, it's that parity of experience between PCs and even lower budget PCs and then consoles. Is you couldn't have one version running for a select minority of PC gamers where you can blow up absolutely everything in every possible fashion and then nobody else can.
Mm-hmm.
There'd be outrage and uproar as only gamers can manage to do.
Yeah.
Right, where are we? What do we talk about? Lots of stuff.
Our expectations for Endgame.
Oh yes, Endgame. I want Capture the Flag because that's not a tired ass done 1 billion times game mode.
Well, the thing about Capture the Flag in Battlefield, in 1942, the thing about it was that you could carry the flag in vehicles. So it was it's not like, you know, Call of Duty Capture the Flag, where, you know, you pick up the flag and then you run a short distance to the enemy base. It's actually it's a much more, it has a lot more structure to it and a lot more play mechanics to it, because if you know, I've seen people pick up flags and jets, I'm pretty sure, and then there's a whole jet fight to try and get the enemy from capturing your flag and a jet. So it's that kind of mechanic, like the whole vehicle mechanic in Capture the Flag, assuming they do allow vehicles to carry the flags in BF3 endgame, will be, it's definitely going to be something new. So I'm interested to find what that's like. But again, it needs to, I mean, we'll see how the map design goes and if there's any imbalance there.
I'd actually love to stage a virtual sit-in across all platforms where players load into Capture the Flag servers, the official DICE ones, and don't play. They all just sit there and let the game carry on indefinitely. And we just fill up every single DICE server with a virtual sit-in until they commit to giving us like Dino mode in Battlefield 4.
Yeah.
Or toasters.
It's like,
we need toasters.
I refuse to believe that Russian and American troops would see any tactical or, you know, strategical advantage to holding a flag. So if you want me to believe this, then give me fucking dinosaurs and I'll believe it.
Oh my god!
Capture the Velociraptor. That'd be a game. Like,
you know what?
I don't really know what to expect from it, because everything else has been largely themed. Close Quarters, Armored Kill. You always knew what the themes were, but what's endgame? What's the theme? I don't think.
Oh, I've heard about this.
Oh, in game sounds like it could be something like a nuclear bomb or something.
Well, the thing about endgame, I don't know the whole environmental setting to it, but the whole, you know, the theme to it gameplay wise, DICE have said, is, you know, fast paced action, as in not small maps, but you've just got really high speed vehicles like the quads and stuff. Well, not the quads, what is it, the motorbikes now?
Yeah, the dirt bikes.
Yeah. So it's that kind of thing. I assume that ties into Capture the Flag as well. It's going to be a very high speed intense mode, which especially in the competitive scene, Capture the Flag always kind of goes down well. So I'd love to see Capture the Flag be done well and then be introduced to the competitive scene to kind of revitalize BF3 competitive tournaments and stuff.
I could imagine a Capture the Flag on a size map that's similar to Aftermath, with dirt bikes, and so you could capture flags on vehicles, but they, you know, just having dirt bikes or something like that. I could see that being entertaining.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried,
more
though.
Robust than the quads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't hit that rock and blow up again.
Dynamite.
Yeah, exactly. Well, at least you could do tricks on the dirt bikes. You could do
there's going
wheelies
to be
and
so
burnouts.
many videos on that.
Wheelie
will they have
roadkill is
horns
going to
is
be
the
the
question.
best.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just
in
plowing
terms-
through some guy doing a wheelie like
Yeah.
There better be a radio station selected.
yeah, like GTA.
Yeah. Find that
about-
classical music.
Actually, the music was something cool that they had in Bad Company too. You know, like the Vietnam one where the vehicles would play music.
Oh
I
yes,
missed
that
that.
was the most epic thing.
Yeah, I
ever.
kind of missed that.
There's something I really want to be replicated in Battlefield 4.
What?
The freaking sound design from Battlefield 3.
Why so? Like, what are you?
It's top notch. Everything is balanced so well, from the explosions to the gunfire to the audio cues of a guy throwing a grenade or dropping some C4 or all that stuff. It adds an entire new dimension that you need to actually genuinely pay attention to while you're playing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I thought you said it needs to be revamped. I was like, what? Why? It's great.
No,
but
they need to get whoever the hell did it all back and pay him a lot of money, because it's an amazing facet of the game.
One effect
Yeah,
I'd
definitely.
love to see back that absolutely made Bad Company 2 one of the most immersive shooters I've ever played into, even in multiplayer, is that, like, if you know what I mean, it's like that deafening sound when a rocket hits you nearby, like all of the sound drowns out.
Oh, that like tinnitus thing where everything just drops and then it hums back.
Yeah, that's just, especially it's really epic when you're running with your squad and then you're coming up to you're flanking an MCOM base stealthily, and then next thing you know, there's a UAV that just appears in the sky, and then it hits you with a rocket, and then everything just deafens out, and then you're like scrambling to get to cover.
I think they'll call that audio suppression. Don't give Demise any ideas.
It would be epic, and I actually wouldn't complain about in the game at all.
If they replaced
and that happens.
Yeah, if they replaced accuracy suppression with, just blurred screen and audio suppression,
yeah,
I'd be fine with that.
You can't talk to your squad on comms for that couple of seconds.
Just come to the PC. You can't do it there. That's the other thing that they definitely have to do. They have to improve, or they have to add proper VoIP on the PC side.
And security, of course.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
Privacy.
The hacker... Something for Battlefield 4 which they need to do for the PC is work on the hacker detection and hacker punishment, because it was not... Especially hacker punishment, like it wasn't up to par of the BF3 PC. If you were hacking in BF3, a lot of the time EA just reset your stats and then you could just go on hacking again.
But even if they just ban your account, surely that's just your gamer tag, and then on you just set up a new one?
No. On Battlefield 3 anyway, I'm pretty sure if you want to set up a new soldier,
you have
PC, to buy the game again, is it?
Yes, on PC you can't have more than one soldier. You have one that's tied to your Origin account. If that gets screwed up, you theoretically would have to buy the game again. I know that that's not the case, because I've been in streams where people have been hacking us, and they just come back with they can just set up new accounts on the go. I don't know how they do that, but
yeah.
I guess if you can hack a complex game, you can set yourself up a new account pretty easy.
Yeah, you'd think that they would actually put more emphasis on trying to fix that, because theoretically that's EA losing money, and whenever we talk about EA, we talk about them wanting to make money. So you'd think that they'd try to not, kind of get that sorted out. Not so much the hacking in game, because maybe they don't care so much about that, but you'd think that if people just create new accounts that they ordinarily would have to pay for, that someone would take notice. But
yeah, they'd be like, "Oh, we're losing revenue," and all of a sudden these sirens start going off at EA.
Yeah, there's got to be one guy in a room somewhere that's chiming an alarm. But
I can see their CEO waking up in a cold sweat at night, just sitting pulled upright in bed. It's like lost revenue.
There's a great disturbance in the force.
Oh man, do we have anything else that we want to cover?
What about map design in Battlefield 4? Any?
To be honest, they wooed me, screwed me, and bought me breakfast with Aftermath.
Yeah, that was the best.
I think that's it's a perfect mix between Bad Company 2 map design and kind of bigger maps to kind of fit in with the whole, Battlefield 3 official Battlefield franchise kind of thing they're going for.
Yeah.
So I think Aftermath, if they can replicate Aftermath and just give us a little bit of variety in terms of the structure of the maps and to a degree the size of the maps, then I'd be happy enough with that.
Yeah, I was giddy playing Aftermath for the first time. I really was. It was like a child. It was like a new remote control car when you're 7 years old. It was just amazing. I remember seeing Aftermath, the trailers and everything, and I was like, this is going to be just 4 Grand Bazaars and that's it. But it actually turned out to be really
what's wrong with Grand Bazaar? I like Grand Bazaar.
I have, no problems, but it's just...
but 4 of them would be dope.
Well, 4 of them. Well, yeah, but still.
Especially in Rush. What I was worried about was Rush. I was just like, they screwed up Armored Kill Rush, and now I'm not sure if they're going to get Rush right again. So,
yeah,
but they pulled it off really well.
Yeah, what I'd love to see in Battlefield 4 is more interaction with the maps. In Caspian Conquest, at the end of the round, a big antenna falls.
Yeah.
That's the only map in the entire game where anything like that happens.
And even then,
Firestorm, the thing falls over, doesn't it? The stack.
No.
No.
What?
Not that.
Well, at the end, the tower falls over.
Yeah.
On Caspian.
Well, the one thing I do like going on what you're saying about interaction, it's not really interaction, but I do like the ambient, the aftershocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are pretty cool. I like that, and it was those things, and I know they did in Black Ops 2 a little bit too. Or just these things happen the map changes. Actually, that was the thing about Black Ops 2, the cargo map, is it actually physically changes throughout the game.
Yeah.
That stuff would be kind of cool.
Sure, that's
That's
something which they did in Black Ops 1 as well. If you're playing Domination on, I forget the map. It's kind of like you've got the B flag in the middle, and then a player can hit a button to either close off one route to that B flag or open it up. So that kind of interaction.
Oh yeah, that's really user controlled. I mean, they had the rocket, going off as well. But I mean, the whole idea that you're in this environment. And sometimes aftershocks happen. I thought that was pretty brilliant. I kind of look forward to more of those sort of the world affecting the way that you play the game. That way you feel like you're a part of this bigger thing and not just this static map that everyone else is running around.
Yeah. What I'd love to see is maybe random climate change. So you start off at the beginning of a rush round in Battlefield 4, and then halfway in, it's scripted to start raining.
Yeah, weather effects.
That'd be a good idea.
Whether that be just random or scripted, or even if you owned a server, you could choose what type of weather it would change at random intervals.
Really cool. I'd love to play
man. Always cloudy. Kill that sun a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
So everyone can use the sun on their gun. I'd love to see rain, like just hardcore torrential downpour maps. Yeah. And then if they have that, take out infrared fucking sights. Disabled, can't use them.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? There's but yeah, I think if they're gonna do, like Billy said, kind of interactivity with the maps in terms of closing off routes or opening up routes, I think I know Black Ops 1, hate to bring up COD, but that was actually a pretty, compared to all of other Call of Duties, that was a pretty big hit in terms of competitive play. Like a lot of people jumped on to play competitively on there, and I think a big factor of that was the interactivity you had with the map. You could use it tactically and cut off routes of other players. But then in terms of Battlefield 4, I'd like to see that, but then also what I was hoping to see from Aftermath, which didn't happen, was I'd like to see earthquakes perhaps that actually change the map, so you have to change the way you play as say an earthquake topples a building or something. You have to go through that.
Battlefield's always been
able to C4 a building onto a tank.
Yeah, speaking of that, Battlefield's always been big on sort of user customizable maps, and then surprising, like in Wake Island in Battlefield 2, you used to be able to destroy the bridges with C4. Same on Strike Car Camp. And I was surprised that they didn't include that in BF3, obviously having all that extra, destruction of the Frostbite 2 engine. I was surprised they left that out. So there could be things like that where you can actually strategically take out buildings or bridges to change the flow of the map. I think that'd be really interesting, especially in Rush.
Yeah. I agree.
The bridge to delay the enemy.
A little scorched earth kind of a thing.
Yeah. It's like, if you take out like X bridge, all of a sudden their armor needs to take a longer or maybe even a more exposed route.
Yeah.
Or maybe then there needs to be like an extra vehicle, like like one of those bridge makers, like a civil engineer.
Awesome.
Now, see, in BF2, you could just take your engineer and with a wrench, and you could fix the bridge. But maybe they want to stay away from that.
That's the part of the Batmobile not even Bruce Wayne gave a crap about.
That's what people were saying for Battlefield 4 in terms of vehicle gameplay. People were saying, stop giving the tanks, the choppers, the jets unlimited ammo. If they want more ammo, they have to go back to the deployment where they stop there for maybe a minute to replenish ammo. Then they can go back out. I think it was in Battlefield 2 where you had like 60 rounds and then 3,000 rounds of machine gun rounds. And then you had to go back to get more ammo. That's what people were saying.
Yeah, you
should happen.
You would fly over an airfield to rearm your jet and stuff like that. But you could also have two tanks with engineers, and they could repair themselves without getting out. So if you had two engineer-filled tanks next to each other, you'd pretty much be invincible because you'd constantly repair one another.
But then going off what Billy said there, I feel like that's something they should have introduced in Battlefield 3 because the vehicles got so much more. They got so many more weapons and tools to use in terms of unlocks, like you had laser guided missiles and canister shells for tanks and stuff. I feel like that should have been balanced out with the need to replenish ammo every so often,
I think they did a good job with the unlimited ammo aspect of it, especially if you're taking, say, like the guided missiles for jets. One, it took forever to lock on, and then two, it took forever to replenish.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything.
It doesn't, yeah, because they have the infrared smoke, and well, that was worthless, and you take your pass by. So I don't know. I think they did a good job, and especially with how hard, or how I should say, how weakly rockets hit tanks sometimes. I think they did a good job with it. It's really only the heat seekers that I know a lot of people have issue with.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, if they're gonna do animations for Battlefield 4, for the love of God, will you just make sure they're, fixed it on release? We all remember playing Battlefield 3 when it came out, and you'd be trying to vault over something, and you wouldn't vault over. And it still happens today. But not only that, but if they're going to bring in new animations, maybe ones for vehicles. So if you're in a jet, you get hit, you're disabled. Instead of just pressing I'm out, he'll actually start an animation where he's about to eject. So maybe it'll cost him 2 seconds. That way it'll give the guy actually shooting him a chance to finish him off.
To kill him?
The guy,
that's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah, that is a really good idea.
In the single player of Battlefield 3,
you have that.
Where the jet, if you take a hit, your pilot would say, we're hit, we have to bail out. And he actually starts an animation where the two of them actually eject out of the plane. And I was wondering, why didn't they include that into the multiplayer? I mean, obviously it's for probably balance issues, but that's one of the gripes that all the jet pilots have. Nobody can get a kill anymore against a jet unless it's like you're one-on-one against him and you can get him with the machine gun.
Yeah, it should definitely apply for vehicles anyway.
I would have to, even just, from a jet standpoint, if I got shot down and I saw my character reach down, yank the ejection seat, and then bam, get blown out, that would actually be kind of a cool way to get out of the jet. Instead of
it'd be visually appealing as well.
Something really basic. We talked earlier about how Warfighter could be used as a base for BF4. The peak and lean animations, I'd love to get those into BF4. Just being able to do that.
Or the slide across animation.
Yeah.
That would be
God, yeah.
The one thing
I hate the slide.
The one thing I liked about Warfire was the spawn protection. You'd be trying to spawn on your teammate and he's in danger, you can't spawn on him. So that's the one thing you hate about Battlefield 3. You spawn on your friend and you're dead.
And vice versa. You're chasing one person, all of a sudden, bam, 2 other people show up right next to me. You're like,
exactly. Yeah.
Well, I like the spawn protection. I like the warning system, but I don't want it to prevent me from spawning. I want it just to glow red. Your guy's being targeted. I want the choice. Can I spawn on the guy or not? I hate that, I can't spawn on you because someone's looking at you.
Yeah.
True. Well, I think it should apply
if you make the decision then to spawn in, you shouldn't get spawn protection from shots.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
Yeah.
You should have a warning, and then it's your choice. And if you spawn in and die, it's tough titties.
Yeah, that's your fault. You made a bad spot.
I hate running after a guy and you get half the shots in him, you need to kill him, and some other Dorito pops out of his ass, eats the rest of the shots you fired, and they both just turn around and mow you down.
Yeah.
Now, I think there should be, especially to address that issue right there should be if your squad mate is getting suppressed, there should be about a second or 2 timer just to prevent that kind of BS happening to whoever's shooting your squad mate.
It's just... Yeah, that's really. I'm actually really glad somebody mentioned that, because I meant to talk about spawn protection and how I'd like to see its removal, but then counterbalanced with that idea of Tony's. That's really good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So sweet. Right, we're looking at a little over an hour.
All right.
So I think we'll call it there. We've discussed plenty. And if we go on too much longer, people just won't watch or listen to this shit.
You'll
it's like an hour
check
long,
out.
not watching that crap.
Oh God, no. Yeah.
I'll have links to everyone's channels or Twitches or all that stuff that you guys do to entertain people, and hopefully send some subscribers your way.
All right.
Thanks for joining me in the chat.
No problem.
No problem at all.
Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Battlefield.